Some may find the following disturbing. Discretion is advised.
Never before in the history of sports podcasts have two men brought you opinion and analysis like these two. They speak for a city that's desperate for wins and titles, not whining and travesty. You might not agree with what they have to say, but you'll defend their right to say it. Sports fans across the world, from Chicago, Illinois, this is the Mac and Read Show.
Hello, everybody. Welcome into another edition of the Mac and Read Show right here on the Barroom Network. And you can find all of the shows on YouTube, Spotify, iTunes, the audio version only there, of course, for the last two. And don't forget to follow the Barroom Network on Twitter at Barroom Network. You can follow Ross and I on Twitter. Follow me at the real Evan Mac. Follow Ross at Ross Read. Same thing if you want to see our faces anywhere else. And we had a week off. I was sick. Now I'm back. COVID's still very real. Just, my public service announcement is just take care of yourselves, please. It's still out there, especially when you got a family to worry about. But we're back like we never left. How you doing, Ross?
I'm good. I'm glad you guys are feeling better. Well wishes to you and the missus and to little baby Lily. And COVID's still real out there. So, do what you can to take care of yourselves. And absolutely good to see you back.
The future stinks. I mean, this is a shitty time to be. I'm just kidding. The future's great. It's a very, very much a give take. I'll take. We don't have the flying cars that we were promised in hoverboards, but we have a lot of cool shit. But we also have a lot of not cool shit. One of them being COVID. So we just kind of got to adapt, right?
It could have been monkeypox, right? So at least you don't have that.
It could have been monkeypox.
That's weird.
So the people that don't know me, Ross, of course, knows, we know our plans. I was in Vegas, and so Vegas gave me the COVID. So Vegas could have easily given me the monkeypox. If you want to hear how I got COVID, you can Venmo me for $5, and I'll tell you the story at some point. We have a lot to get to on the show today. We're talking about the Bears, of course, to lead off. They broke minicamp and injuries already, expectations for David Montgomery. Gronk, as far as NFL news, oh my God, he's retiring again. And we say goodbye to a couple of Baltimore Ravens, very unfortunate. And there's some other minor headlines going around. The Warriors, we didn't get to talk about the new champs and the Warriors last week, just taking care of the Celtics in 6 games, what that does for Steph's legacy, what that does for Steve Kerr's legacy, Draymond too. Draymond was hilarious. We'll get to all of that. And the rest of the basketball news that's breaking right now is the draft's popping up and trades are happening. Touch on baseball, music. I watched Hustle. And then, of course, we'll end the show with a top 5 as well. Right now, Ross, we're in that abyss. Once the finals end, it's that sort of lull. I mean, we have baseball and Stanley Cup playoffs are going on right now with the 2 hockey teams that happen to be in there. And baseball and hockey. And then really we're just going to have baseball until a lot of football training camp news and all this. So we'll have a lot of, we'll be all over the place for sure. Various topics that we get to, but as usual, we will lead with some Bears news and not too much as they had mini camps and they broke this past Thursday, and Matt Eberflus in his first Bears mini camps, He broke camp and he told his players, he encouraged them to, quote, come back lean, fit, and strong. Amen to that. Didn't come without bad news already. You hate in training camp and early on when these guys haven't even played it down and haven't even trimmed it down to the 53-man roster. So I guess it's good to that extent, too. That Dakota Dozier is already on the IR, so he was injured in a mini camp practice. That's bad, considering this offensive line needs a lot of depth, and there's a big microscope under this unit too to protect Justin Fields and to pave the way for David Montgomery. Jason Stanley, the cornerback who was formerly with the Seahawks, was signed. Any other impressions from mini camp so far, Ross? And soon we'll be in training camp towards the end of July here. So we have a lull from the Bears as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing at this point is, I mean, they got out of it relatively unscathed, right? Dozier got hurt. At the end of the day, that's not that big of a loss. That might be a little bit of addition by subtraction because that might force smart Ryan Poles to go out there and find another veteran free agent guard before the season starts. I don't think Dozier was very good. I don't think he was going to contribute much for this football team going forward. I mean, the biggest thing is you were able to get some reps with your young guys and Justin Fields, who's taking all of the snaps, right, in camp and mini camp and going into training camp. He didn't have that luxury last year because he was behind Andy Dalton. And, you got out of there. Everybody was healthy. Everybody's okay. And now these times tend to be the scariest for coaches and general managers because your players are gone for about 6 to 8 weeks or so, and you don't see them. You're not really in touch with them. You don't know what's going on. You hope that they're staying healthy. You hope that they're, most importantly, staying out of trouble and not showing up on the police blotter or anything like that. So I mean, those are the biggest things now. I know Fields and a lot of the offensive players are going to get together. I think they're getting together in Atlanta now. Last time they were in California, and they were in Florida and stuff like that. So now I think they're getting together in Atlanta, and that's all you want to see. But and from here on now it's just we're all in a big holding pattern until training camp starts. And the Bears released the schedule for training camp, which will start in July. They released it yesterday, I believe. They got their Family Fest day as they do usually, but this time it's during the week. And it's going to be exciting to see how these guys come together and finally put some pads on and see who's going to shake out on the depth charts.
Absolutely. From July 26th through August 21st, as you saw it scroll at the bottom of your screen there, 11 practices open to the public, and they're all scheduled to begin those 10 a.m. times in Bourbonnais. It's, and if you haven't gone before, it's an experience. You should definitely check it out. As far as the Bears are concerned, there's obviously big expectations for the offense to kind of make the next step forward. And as I mentioned, a lot of it hinges on that offensive line. And a lot of it hinges on Justin Fields' development, too, as a quarterback in his second year in the league. That's going to be big, building chemistry with wide receivers. But what'll set the tone, you got to figure, is going to be David Montgomery. And this guy, going into his fourth season, going into the fourth year of his rookie deal, contract year where he's playing for big money at this point, where running backs, they just grow on trees and they don't get a lot of big money. Unless you're Derrick Henry or unless you're, other household names and franchise players like that. But Montgomery has had solid first few seasons for the Bears. You see the potential is there, just in flux with various offensive coordinators and various personnel. I wonder, Ross, what you think is feasible as far as his stat line. I think, going into this fourth year, to get a long-term contract, he's going to obviously have to get over 1,000 yards. He's going to have to do double digits, touchdowns. Probably going to have to be a receiving threat, which he has been as well, and just be able to sneak out of the backfield to bail Justin Fields out, to be his best friend. We won't see. I doubt we'll see sort of the Matt Nagy, Santa Slay, and Wildcat, things like that. There will be some gimmicky play calling, but I don't really see Eberflus as that guy. Really, what David Montgomery's strength is running after the contact, right? He led the league, I think, in rushing yards after the first hit, something like that. I believe he's in the top 10 of running backs, that have been active in the time that he has been active right now. So what the expectations are. You could kind of surmise what you will, but what do you think, Ross?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think he's going to continue to be the bell cow for the football team. He's going to be able to continue to churn those tough yards out and being able to kind of take a lot of pressure off of Justin Fields, off of the offensive line, taking a lot of pressure off of the passing game as well. I don't consider David to be a highly explosive football player. I think he's just very consistent, kind of blue collar, keep the chains moving kind of guy, and I expect that from him. So I expect him to still finish the season in the area of 700-800 yards on the ground and have close to 8 or 9 touchdowns. Whether he'll be a weapon or not in the passing game, well, that remains to be seen. I hope he is. I think he is a solid receiver. But I also think that they're going to put Velus Jones in the backfield a lot. and line him up back there and kind of, move him around and get him some touches out the backfield and get him some mismatches, very much like we see Cordell Patterson get right now with the Falcons and Deebo Samuel with the 49ers. I also think that David Montgomery is going to, see a lot of his snaps cut down due to Khalil Herbert. I think Khalil Herbert is an emerging young explosive player. You kind of hit on the head. It's usually not great practice to pay running backs a big second-year contract or a big, second-time contract on the way around. And if the Bears and Ryan Poles don't really want to invest long-term in David Montgomery, well, why wouldn't they kind of lean a little bit more on Khalil Herbert, knowing that they have him on a rookie deal for a little bit longer period of time? And I think you're going to see them transition Herbert more into the offense, because I do think he's a more explosive football player, and he's got more of that home run ability than David Montgomery does.
Yeah, you saw Herbert have extended workload last season and had some good games for himself. So to have that competition going into, and the Bears drafted a running back in the 6th round, it should be mentioned as well, just for sake of competition. And again, these guys, they grow on trees, they get injured. It's tough. It's one of the toughest positions in terms of injury and as far as expectations, and to make your mark and to have a long-term contract like that. It's very tough. So I'm curious to see how Montgomery is used, and curious to see his output and how he fits in with this new offense, and how he fits into Matt Eberflus's game plan as a whole. And again, going back to the offensive line, I think you hit it on the head with Dakota Dozier, Ross. Now if you're Eberflus, you look around the league and you see if there's another sort of younger vet out there, if you can fill out this line. I know that you did draft a lot of depth in the draft back in April. So these guys got to fight it out come training camp, and you'll see firsthand how it's going to pan out, really. But I'm not sure that, outside of Dakota Dozier, you look at that interior has just been kind of a mess. Not to say that the tackle position has been any better, but that's going to be very telling for the production of David Montgomery going forward too.
It is, and I think that's the one group that you hope really comes together sooner than later, and you hope 5 guys emerge at the start of training camp. I think right now the Bears have a lot of it's projected to be one of the worst offensive lines in football. They've got a lot of young, inexperienced guys on there. They've got guys coming off an injury like Tevin Jenkins was most of last year, and Larry Borom was kind of a late entry into the starting lineup last season as a rookie. And so, you've got a lot of, but, Ryan Poles did invest a lot in the draft as well. And you saw like Braxton Jones get a ton of snaps at left tackle in minicamp. He's a rookie coming into this. So there are no household names on that offensive line, but I think there's some guys that could flash. And most importantly, if they can come together and play at least average football, I think that's a big win for the Bears, and obviously a big win to keep your quarterback upright, but then also for the running game, because I do think the Bears are going to want to run the football a lot no matter who's in the backfield. I think you're going to see multiple guys in the backfield get a lot of touches out there, and I think they're going to want to use the play action a lot and get Justin Fields on the move, and you need those offensive linemen to be very athletic and cohesive to be able to run that.
Yeah, no question about that. And again, in the abyss, kind of just stretching for headlines at this point across the league, but stay tuned as far as the Bears go, and just obviously, like you said, Ross, hopefully these younger guys take care of themselves and don't get into any sort of trouble, any sort of speeding tickets, anything stupid like that. And as far as young guys concerned, it was interesting. One of the headlines I read today was about Torrey Smith talking about how a lot of these rookies have to go and buy the vets dinner, and that's a long-standing tradition, these $50,000 dinners. And you heard Tom Brady, would show up and he would order the most expensive, like a $5,000 bottle of wine, take a sip, and then leave. Just wasteful shit like that. Where do you side on the rookie dinners like that? I think and what Torrey Smith's, what he was arguing was exactly right. If you've seen Broke, or you've seen any sort of, a lot of these NFL players, I mean, obviously they come into a lot of money, but they're not taught money management, so they just blow through it. If they have not as long-term of a career, we'll get to Gronk and how he spent his money in a moment too. But yeah, where do you side on that?
Yeah, I completely agree with Torrey Smith, and it's awesome because he got it from a veteran, a damn good veteran in Anquan Bolden, who was an awesome wide receiver in this league. And Anquan was the guy that said, "Hey, look, man, it needs to stop." And I completely agree. A lot of these guys come into the league, by the time they get their rookie deal, they sign that, but you got to pay the agent, you got to buy the house, you got to buy mama a house, you got to buy yourself a car, you've got to get, situated. And, what turned into $5 million or even $750,000, you look up and you've got pennies left. And so to take an entire football team out to Ruth Chris or something like that for a dinner and spend $75,000, that's just absurd. And I don't get it. I don't get the whole hazing thing and the rookie thing. I think, sometimes, it's fun in high school and maybe even a little bit in college, but when you're in the NFL, you're a professional. Like you don't ever get a job at accounting and make Barbara go out and buy everybody freshie for lunch or something like that. Or it's like it's absurd. Like let's have to be professionals. You can have fun. I think just think that you should have fun in a different way. I'm all for rookies carrying the veterans' pads at the end of practice, or filling up the water bottles, or washing a guy's car, or something fun like that. But when it comes to actually tangible money, and maybe forcing a guy to spend a ton of money, I'm not in favor of that. I'm also not in favor of Trevor Lawrence converting some of his bonus check into cryptocurrency. That is just an absolute nightmare of a decision there. Poor decision making from QB1.
Well, especially right now. Didn't OBJ do that last year? Didn't he want his 1 year deal in crypto?
He did.
That's their decision. May not be a good one.
These financial advisors got to do a lot better if you're telling these guys to take some of these checks in cryptocurrency right now. You might as well be passing out monopoly money in some cases.
Exactly. Just here's an NFT, and then you won't get any visible money. Yeah, $75,000 on a dinner for veteran teammates. That's an example that Jets wide receiver Garrett Wilson was talking about, and had to foot the bill for that. And these guys don't make a ton of money that first year at all. It's one thing to do some sort of, like you said, carrying pads is one thing, or pranking a rookie, something like that. But to have them foot the bill is just absurd and stupid. Like, especially the NFL these days, because you get fined $50,000 for wearing the wrong colored cleats, something like that. It's pretty dumb. Talking about Gronk, I heard with the news of his retirement, he didn't spend any of his salary money. Gronk has had a ton of endorsements over the years. He does, what does he do? Do the, the veteran shit like that. He's done AARP or whatever. He's done Dunkin' Donuts. He's done, between Tampa and between his time with New England, he has had many, many deals. But as far as Gronk's resume goes, if this is indeed his actual retirement, the man, probably you put him up there with Tony Gonzalez and guys, the likes of that, as far as the best resume of all time of a tight end. Antonio Gates too. Like, he's on that Mount Rushmore, and he might be the GOAT tight end, because in his prime, I was watching highlights of him in New England with Brady, and what he did to elevate Brady's career. Like, Brady obviously has had a ton of weapons over the years. None was as dangerous as Rob Gronkowski. He had Randy Moss, impressive. Julian Edelman, your boy, Ross, not as impressive as Rob Gronkowski in his prime, an all-pro for sure. And to go to Tampa with Brady, I mean, just the connection between those two and his personality, just unbelievable. But the run after the catch stuff and how he would just handle the football, like not even tuck it, just go around guys like that and lead towards the end zone, made some phenomenal grabs. The guy's a meatball, but really just, again, clearly good money management and one of the best tight ends we'll ever see. We're lucky we get to see guys like, I feel like Travis Kelce has earned that nickname, kind of baby Gronk at this point, and George Kittle. Guys like that are just really impressive, and they set the mold of a guy like Gronkowski. And so if he's gone, he'll be missed too, because he was a hilarious personality for sure on and off the field.
Terrific football player. He's the best tight end I've ever seen in my lifetime. I put him on that list, obviously, with Tony Gonzalez. I was able to see Shannon Sharp play for a long time with the Denver Broncos. He was awesome. You mentioned Antonio Gates, who was a phenomenal tight end as well. I never got to see guys like Kellen Winslow Sr. I got to see his son play, who's not as good, but I didn't get to see Kellen Winslow Sr. play. I heard he was obviously a phenomenal tight end. You know, Chicago's own Mike Ditka is in the Hall of Fame as a tight end as well. But Gronk was the best to me because he was the best all-around tight end I've ever seen. He was a phenomenal blocker. I think a lot of people forget that. The guy, he would line up in line and just be an absolute terror, especially in those New England years as a blocker. And then the guy would just take an absolute punishment going up and down the field, catching these passes, and he would deliver the punishment too. He was an amazing red zone target, and obviously you hit it on the head there. It was truly a genius visionary at the time for Bill Belichick to go out there and get Rob Gronkowski and Aaron Hernandez at the same time. If we remember, those are two tight ends who were two completely different guys. And, that was he kind of made a trend that I think we see a lot of today, which is kind of like these hybrid, big guys that you can put them both on the football field at the same time. I think that's what Travis Kelce does very well now. Travis Kelce's not as good of a blocker as Rob Gronkowski, but he's at the receiving end. He kind of reminds me of a hybrid on offense of Gronk and Aaron Hernandez. So, shout out to Gronk. I didn't think he would last this long. I think that year off or so really did his body some good, and he was able to come back and give Tampa Bay, something and give them their Super Bowl ring. I think that him being hurt in the Super Bowl that they lost to the second Super Bowl to the Giants, and he was hurt in that Super Bowl. I think that was a big reason why the Patriots lost that football game. You could just tell he didn't quite have it. And, Brady was having to rely on, the Wes Welkers of the world and the guys who weren't that good. I think if Gronk is healthy in that Super Bowl, then the Patriots get even another ring, So, definitely first ballot Hall of Famer. He's, obviously, a lot of people like to think of him as a big dumb jock, but like you said, he's a guy he's saved his money, has been smart in his opportunities outside of football. He was doing stuff with Fox. He reminds me a lot of Marshawn Lynch in that way. And I expect him to have a very lucrative career going forward. He can be in the Expendables Part 7. He can be on WWE. He could, he can host one of those stupid TV shows on ABC where they jump off of like little balls and splash into the water or something like that. He's just gonna work, and he's always gonna be in our lives for the rest of his life. And shout out to him for doing that. And also shout out to his mom, who there's like 4 Gronkowskis, and
there's a ton of them. Yeah.
She popped them all out, and she raised those boys, and I can imagine them just beating the shit out of each other at home every single day and going through probably 6 gallons of milk a week and the loaves of bread and stuff like that. So shout out to that woman. She's a saint. She deserves everything that she has as well, and everything that's also coming to her still.
Absolutely. That family is certainly capitalized off the Gronkowski name's rise to fame at this point. I feel like they do a cruise every year too, and it's like sponsored by Bud Light and just ridiculous and debauchery. Yeah, you talked about Gronk and his future in media. He'll be hosting Family Feud. Who knows? He'll be succeeding Steve Harvey. But I'm curious to see. I feel like there's a lot of speculation now that he is quote unquote retired for good, as to where he will land if he goes to Fox. He seems like a Fox guy to me. But just to go and be on the sidelines or to be, providing any sort of commentary. We know that Tom Brady, as soon as he retires, he'll be in the booth, good or bad. But Gronk would be hilarious. He'd have to censor himself too. Him and Marshawn, very similar in that sense, where they would have to censor themselves as well. But quite a career. And you talked about his injury struggles. Like Gronk seemed indestructible a lot of times, but had various arm injuries and it was hell on his legs, and going up, across the middle against the toughest guys in the league and beating corners and getting tackled by, those guys is just hell on your body. So kudos to him. And when you're, especially now in this day and age, guys are retiring earlier and earlier, when it's time. And he pretty much knew when it was time. I don't know if Tom Brady knows when it's time, but Gronkowski did.
Yeah, absolutely. And it shows you how punishing the position of tight end is, because I see a lot of these guys, they start to kind of fall off of a cliff a little bit after year 5 and 6, especially when you get as physical at the position as Rob Gronkowski played. So, like I said earlier, for him to even last this long, and he would run out there at the end of his career and he has all this body armor all over his arms and just all this stuff. He's just all taped up with everything. Like Barry Bonds at the end of his career, like when he went up to bat. And you just marvel at it because you see these guys nowadays. We play fantasy football by year 5 or 6. A lot of these guys are falling off a cliff offensively, and they're not even putting up numbers anymore. So, shout out to him. And now you start to wonder, Travis Kelsey is the next guy up, right? He's the next, big dog at that position now. How much more time does he have to play at a high level? Luckily he doesn't play as physical as Rob Gronkowski, so he could probably last a little bit longer.
Yeah, you would think so. That's a question, where Gronkowski is gone, who's going to sort of step up? And yeah, it would seem that Kelsey is that guy for sure. He's that difference maker. And Kittle, I mentioned too, just super impressive players and set the mold for that tight end position where you're basically putting up the same numbers as wide receivers. You can block though too. It's even better at this point. And unfortunate news, Ross, you're talking about Tony Siragusa dying. That broke earlier today, and 55 is certainly way too young. Part of as it's at the bottom of your screen, Baltimore Ravens Super Bowl winning team in 2001. And it was Jamal Lewis who was his teammate who confirmed it. That's tough. The guy was very large, but gone too soon for sure. I remember certainly him being mic'd up for those moments too during the Ravens Super Bowl and being a big part of that team and how I think coming up there's a 30 for 30 with the Ravens Super Bowl run, if I'm not mistaken. Yep. So that he's definitely going to be a part of that, where they're, that sort of team that is after like one of the great defenses of the leagues of the 85 Bears and talk about in that mold. And then his contributions after football, after his playing career and going into the Fox studios and contributing there, it was just a big personality. He was just a fun guy, and I definitely enjoyed him. I think the Goose nickname was great, and you could kind of love or hate him, but you certainly appreciated what he brought to the table.
Absolutely. I mean, he's he reminds me of, like you said, those big space heaters that we had a lot more in common back then. It was like Tony Siragusa, it was like Vince Wilfork, right, for the from the New England Patriots. The Bears had tractor trailer, right, when they had those big guys up front as well. So it's really sad. It's sad to see anybody pass away at 55 years old, but especially somebody that has been in our life for a period of time, like Siragusa was, who's a fun, awesome football player, big personality. Moved on to the media side of things. I thought he had a good run at Fox. I was surprised that he didn't keep it going. He's in one of my favorite movies of all time, which is The 25th Hour, which is a Spike Lee movie that stars Edward Norton, which is an amazing, amazing film. If you guys watch it, he plays a bouncer in the movie for he plays like a mob guy or something like that in the movie for a short period of time. But yeah, absolutely. But just a fun guy. It sucks, man. The Ravens had 2 big blows today because they had one of their defensive end / linebackers who
Jalen Ferguson,
who's tragically passed away as well. So prayers to the Ravens family today, and prayers to those 2 gentlemen's friends and family as well. It's just, that's news that you never want to hear from a 25-year-old young man to a 55-year-old young man. It's just absolutely awful. You never know, right?
You never do. We don't want to end on a somber note, the NFL talk, though. There's a ton of speculation as far as offseason moves that still could happen. As far as the big thing is the Browns right now and whatever the hell is going on with that, and Deshaun Watson settling outside of court with all these women that have come forward with these allegations. And then Baker Mayfield, of course, requesting his trade. That's just one example. There's still a ton of teams that need to make a big splash, and there's still some uncertainty as far as free agents. Is there a move out there that sticks out to you, Ross, that you'd like to see a team make?
Well, I mean, the 2 things for me is, like you hit it on the head. We haven't talked a lot about the Deshaun Watson stuff for obvious reasons. It's creepy. It's uncomfortable. We don't know what's true, what's not true. It's not something that a lot of people want to hear about. But eventually, we are all going to have to have a conversation about it. And most importantly, the NFL is going to have a conversation about it in terms of what they're going to do with Watson. Are you going to suspend him for a full season? Are you going to suspend him for 10 games? I mean, how is this going to come down, and when is this going to come down? I think we should hear an announcement on that fairly soon, probably before we do another show here, because after him settling the 20 out of the 24 cases, I think we should kind of get some more light on that. But if he's suspended for a year, hypothetically, what do the Browns do? Baker Mayfield's told you he doesn't want to be there anymore. And Josina Anderson reported today Seahawks are still very much interested in Baker Mayfield. They're even interested in giving him a long-term deal if they're able to work out a trade for him. And, that kind of leaves the Browns in a really tough spot because they went all in for this season with some free agent moves and some different moves to go out there. And it would be really tough if they can't have Deshaun Watson on the field. I don't feel bad for them. I feel like what they did and how they gave him the money is really freaking gross. So they kind of deserve it. But from a pure football standpoint, the Watson domino is huge. And then from there is what's going on with Baker Mayfield. Is he staying in Cleveland? Is he going to Seattle? And then number 3, for me, you still have Jimmy Garoppolo out in San Francisco, who is going to be ready to throw football again in about a month and a half. He's coming off a shoulder injury, and he's still on that team. Is he going to Carolina or is he not going to Carolina? Is he staying in San Francisco? If he stays in San Francisco, does that make it a really weird situation for Trey Lance that's there and they want Trey Lance to take over? Or what if Jimmy Garoppolo outplays him in training camp? It's all just really weird and kind of, all over the place. Other moves, we don't know what's going on with Odell. Odell is still rehabbing a torn ACL that he had in the Super Bowl. So I don't expect Odell to be ready to play any kind of meaningful football until probably closer to week 6 or maybe a little bit later than that. But a team could definitely use Odell Beckham in a really long season post week 6, right? You're looking at maybe are the Green Bay Packers keeping an eye on him? Would he go back to the Rams on a cheap deal or something like that, or would he go somewhere else? So that's another guy who's kind of lingering out there right now, just kind of like you're watching and seeing what's going on. What if Tom Brady just called him and say, "Hey, Odell, just stay home and then show up in Tampa in week 8, and that's really when I need you."
Or Aaron Rodgers, yeah.
Sure.
Some team will pay him in crypto again. We talked about the free agents, and I think that obviously Odell Beckham Jr. is headlining that, but there's a ton of offensive tackle talent too, and Dwayne Brown and Riley Reif, Eric Fisher, guys like that. Dante Hightower's out there. So, these guys could still make moves at some point soon, but that Brown situation is so odd. And when you think of this franchise, I was suddenly turning a corner. I was never a Mayfield fan, but especially Watson too with this, it just seems like the Browns are just kind of cursed to an extent. You think the Bears are. Look at the Browns organization as well. So we'll have to monitor that and tune in next week to see what we have to say about that. Switch focus to the NBA, Ross, and we got a new champ, an old new champ. They did it before Kevin Durant. They did it during Kevin Durant, and they did it after Steph and Clay and Draymond. Very impressive, man, when you figure they had called this from the start. And of course they did, because they've been there before. And it was a good series. I think hats go off to the Celtics. They were just overmatched by that 3-headed monster that I mentioned. And then the lottery pick and Andrew Wiggins, I think obviously Jordan Poole and Gary Payton Jr. This franchise just develops talent so well and is run so well. You figure how they were able to, talking about what I just did, handle getting that personality and that player in Kevin Durant, and then bottom of the league after that, and then rebounding and making a run like this is probably their most impressive championship yet. You figure they were loaded before and they were in the same breath as the Heats of the world and all these superstar laden teams. This core has stayed together, and you throw Iguodala in there and whoever else who's kind of stayed over. And Steve Kerr, what he's done with this team, nothing short of amazing. I think this elevates Curry certainly into the conversation of one of those best players of all time. He's already the best shooter of all time in terms of accomplishments. I think that series was what we expected. I did call Warriors in 6, went to that. I think we were all robbed of a Game 7 on Father's Day, though, for whatever reason. Draymond stayed so petty. It was great to see. But I'd say first too, Ross, regarding that championship, where does this leave Steph Curry? He's in the top 10 players. Is he in the top 10 players of all time, or where is he at for you right now?
He's in my top 10 of all time. So I was going through it the other day. My top 10 has, let me see if I can remember this off the top of my head.
Here we go.
It's got Jordan, LeBron, Bill Russell, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, right? Magic Johnson, Larry Bird, Tim Duncan, and then Wilt Chamberlain, and then I got to put Kobe, and then I got to put Steph Curry. That's my top 10. And, he sneaks in there. You have to put him in there. You have to consider this a fringe dynasty of what he's done. And you kind of hit on the head for me. In the player empowerment era, this is the guy that stayed in Golden State his entire time and went through the ups and downs of that whole situation, the organization. Think about his early ankle injuries that he had. Think about, the stuff that Clay has gone through the last 2 years of his career, and the getting Kevin Durant, to losing the Kevin Durant, to losing the 73-9 season, but coming back and doing this is just super impressive. I mean, the guy was in a playoff. They were in the play-in game last year, and they lost the play-in game to the Lakers, right? And all of a sudden, he's an NBA. They're NBA champions a year later, right? And remember, the year before that, he missed most of the year with a hand injury. So it's just really impressive. I just read a stat on Twitter right now that he has the largest playoff win. He's got the best playoff win record of all time for a player. That is impressive within itself. What was the most impressive to me was like you could tell that he heard the noise, which I thought was absurd, but he heard it and he didn't shy away from it, and he made everybody say his name at the end of that series. And he was as fired up as I've ever seen him as a career. He's barking at the crowd in Boston. He's hitting dagger threes from half court, and he's talking
to win
shit.
Game 6 in Boston.
Oh my goodness, the Game 4, that Friday night game, he was insane. Yeah. It was one of the best playoff championship performances I've ever seen in my lifetime. And for him to do that, he belongs in that pantheon now of best players. And, shout out to Clay, who didn't quite have it. He's his first year back, but he still battled his ass off. And shout out to Draymond, who was up and down the entire series, but I thought he was absolutely awesome in Game 6. It was a big reason why they won that basketball game. And, Steve Kerr. Steve Kerr has 8 rings now, I believe, which is just impressive as a player coach. And the scary thing to me is Golden State very much so could be there next year, because I don't see Steph Curry slowing down. I think Klay Thompson gets better with a full offseason of rest and recovery and being able to work on his craft again. But most importantly, they got these young guys. Jordan Poole is only going to get better. Gary Payton II is only going to get better, right? They still have Wiseman, who was the second overall pick from a couple of years ago, who missed his whole year with injury. Like,
just unfair.
All of a sudden, you throw in an athletic 7-footer that can knock down jump shots and stuff like that. Like, this team, Kuminga is going to be a stud when he kind of figures it all out. So, there's no reason why Steph and that whole nucleus can't win another ring or two. And if he starts tying Kobe and Magic, and then he starts creeping up on Jordan with like number 6, you're like, oh shit! Like, this guy, he might go down as like top 5 to 7 of all time. It's going to get really interesting the next couple of years.
And that organization, that's what they're going for. Of course, we mentioned it on a previous show about how they really resembled the Spurs. I feel like keeping a core together, and then you get Kawhi, and then you try to prepare for life after him, and very important players like that, for lack of a better term. And yeah, you talk about Curry being ranked in the top 10. He's got to be up there. I've absolutely, with the top players of all time, and certainly you put him in that conversation with Jordan and Shaq and Kobe and these guys who have a lot of accomplishments. And I think the big debate now is where he is at and where he is compared to it is in terms of him and LeBron. Like, is this the LeBron era or is this the Steph era? Mm-hmm. And they've shared the spotlight. They've traded championships for the past decade, it feels like, outside of, a couple outliers in there. It's incredibly impressive. And how this team has came together to win a championship. Klay Thompson, sure, he didn't have the best finals, but certainly rebounded big time from having that ACL injury. I know he was hugging. One of the first people he hugged was his trainer and one of the lead physicians of the Golden State Warriors staff. They're just so well run from top to bottom. You just really have to be green with envy if you're any other organization in this league. And Steve Kerr, I think heck goes off to him. I think, certainly I don't put a paramount on coaching as much as a lot of other leagues, but it makes a huge difference, especially when you see in the finals here guys from the Popovich coaching tree and guys who know exactly how to manage personalities, which is a big thing. And in the smaller roster size, it just gets that much tougher, I feel like, to an extent. But it was hilarious to see Draymond and Steph and Clay celebrate once again. And you got to figure again with James Weissman and with these young guys coming up to provide some help for Steph and for Clay and for Draymond, for these guys to try and run it back. Wonky Bucks are the odds-on favorite between them and Warriors, as you see it at the bottom of your screen here. But I would be hard-pressed not to really see these Warriors run it back, because they've just been there before, which means so much. And I think there's a lot of, even during the finals talk, was all about the Lakers, was all about the offseason for LeBron. And why not? Why not focus on Steph at this point? It's crazy to me that he wasn't getting the same spotlight as a LeBron James. And I get it. LeBron James is still the face of the league. He's getting the comparisons to Jordan. He can break the all-time leading scorers list next year and overtake Kareem. But Steph is getting up there too in that conversation of owning this era and setting the tone for the era with shooters too. I mean, everybody's trying to be like Steph at this point.
Yeah, I think it's safe to say that LeBron James is still the better player, in my opinion. I think he's the second greatest player of all time. But I think it's safe to say that Steph Curry has had the better past 10 years and has been the better player over the last decade. I think we forget LeBron's been in the league for 20 years now, so he's had like two separate careers, it feels like. Steph has revolutionized the game in a way that I don't think that, we'll ever see again, probably, or he's changed it for a ways, in a way that it's going to take a long time to maybe revert back to something else. He's just such a likable guy. I don't understand how anybody could not like Steph Curry. He's a fun basketball player. He does everything the right way. He's electric on the court. He's a good family man. He loves his kids and stuff like that. And he stayed in one spot the entire time. I think the whole Bay Area would walk past they'd walk on the Golden Gate Bridge the whole time for Steph Curry. That's how much they love him there. And I think that in this kind of sports era where a lot of teams and fans don't really get attached to one guy because they tend to leave pretty quickly, it's really cool to see that, and to see a guy who walks that good fine line of being like cocky petty, but still being very humble and very skilled and very appreciative of everything and all his accomplishments that have come to him.
Riley Curry still should be like 4 years old to me. It's just crazy to see.
He's growing up so fast.
And Curry, for like Steph himself too. He's 34 now, and it's insane the accomplishments he's had and the hype and everything. To go again back to the bottom of the league and then to rebound like that and basically retool completely around the three guys and him and Draymond and Clay, it's incredibly impressive. And hopefully we'll see. Talking about LeBron and the Lakers, hopefully we see these two teams have some great clashes come this next basketball season. And so now we're in the offseason, Ross.
Mm-hmm.
On the Bulls tip,
yep.
I know you're really into potentially shopping that number 18 pick and maybe a Kobe White thrown in there and getting someone like a John Collins or getting someone established. Because at 18, hey, who knows at that point? Who's going to hit? I think there's a lot of names being thrown out there. But what's the likelihood that we see a trade, in your opinion?
I think it's going to be pretty good. It's tough to really trade, I feel like, in the NBA draft. I think, on the surface, everybody wants to trade picks and stuff like that. It never quite materializes. It's very rare that we get a ton of draft day trades. We'll get a couple sprinkled in there, but it's rare. We did see Jeremy Grant get traded earlier today, but that was for a 2025 first round pick. He's going to Portland now. The Bulls have a decision to make, because it's like, on one side, are you going to try and go all in and get a guy like Rudy Gobert, who can really be a game changer on defense, but doesn't provide you much on offense? And don't you need some offensive talent? But Gobert is defensive player of the year multiple times. He fixes a need as a rim running protector for the Bulls as well. But it's probably going to cost you Vooch and Patrick Williams and maybe a first round pick, right? And is that a lot to give up for a guy like that, who also is going to make over $40 million a year coming up really soon? Or do you call, like you said, Atlanta and see if you could pry John Collins out, who's more of a hybrid power forward, small forward who can kind of score and shoot from everywhere in the court, and provide you with a lot of spacing and offense and stuff like that. And what's it going to take to pry him out of there? I would like to see the Bulls do something. I don't think that you can just run this team back next year and think that automatically you're going to be able to be any more than probably a fifth seed in the Eastern Conference, especially because Milwaukee, is going to reload. They're going to get better. They're pissed off. I don't know what the hell Brooklyn's going to do, but Brooklyn's going to do something, even if it's just running it back with a full-time Kyrie Irving. Boston's going to get better. Philly's going to get better. All these teams are going to get better, and so the Bulls have to do something. In terms of the draft tomorrow, I still think packaging Kobe White in the 18th pick overall is something that they're going to lean heavily, towards. My backup plan is probably calling the Knicks, who really want to get Jalen Brunson, on a offer sheet to New York, but they got to clear some cap space. So the Bulls might take on Alec Burks, who's a defender and a shooter as well, and take on his contract. And maybe the Bulls can get back like the 11th overall pick, which would be pretty cool as well. So I expect Arturas Karnisovas and Mark Eversley to be active tomorrow night. I think we're going to see some fireworks throughout the draft. I think it's going to be fun. I think right now, 1, 2, 3 is probably set with Jabari Smith, Chet Holmgren, and Paolo Banchero. But I think after that, at number 4, it gets really interesting. Jaden Ivey is the best guy on the board, but he doesn't want to go to Sacramento. Who the hell wants to go to Sacramento? So what's Sacramento going to do? Are they going to take him and pair him with another point guard that they have in De'Aaron Fox? Or are they going to try and trade out of that pick and maybe get a star player that wants to come out? That's where things get really interesting tomorrow night. And it'll be interesting to see how the Bulls factor in. I love NBA draft night. It's always a lot of excitement. Adam
already
Silver,
great's happening.
Yeah, Adam Silver should be back there tomorrow. I think he got COVID the same time you got COVID. Maybe you guys were together in Vegas. So it's
he was at the Peppermint Hippo with me. Adam, buy me a lap dance. I don't know where I side with the Bulls and trading that pick. And I know we've both mentioned Kobe White at nauseum, but also Patrick Williams has been thrown out there. They need someone. I feel like a bolstering in the front court is certainly what they need. With Vucevic, that's a tough situation, and what to do with him in this offseason. It seems like the Bulls will be stuck with him. But also, looking at 18, there's guys who made deeper runs into March Madness last year, as far as Mark Williams and Tari Eason and Ochai Agbaji and guys like that might drop as far as 18 for the Bulls. But then you could get someone just completely unproven from like Santa Clara or someone like that. Right. But as far as what this team needs, I think you're a big John Collins guy. I just think that they need a breath of fresh air in the front court. I think they're very set as far as, looking at DeMar DeRozan and Zach LaVine, just making those guys happy is going to be super important. But you look around the league, you need a guy like that, unless you're the Golden State Warriors in the case that we just talked about. You need a guy who can certainly facilitate the offense, and hopefully you'd see Patrick Williams as that guy and develop into this next year. But I'm not sure that the Bulls see him that way. We'll see with this Karnisovas experiment and how it's already paid off. That the offseason is where you win these championships.
Yeah,
and I'm looking at the mock drafts now, and certainly I was reading about Chet Holmgren and how he's just a freak nature. And seeing him at Gonzaga is one thing, and seeing him play in college basketball, but it's so hard for me to get behind this guy who's 7 feet tall and 190 pounds. And I know how skilled he is. I know he can shoot, and this is the mold of big guys right now where they can all shoot threes, and they're like Embiid, and he's young. He's young, which we can't forget too. And look how Embiid jacked himself up. Look how Giannis jacked himself up too. But Chet Holmgren, man, it was cool to read about his work ethic though, and how he will probably be a focal point of the league for the next several years, barring any injury like a Greg Oden, something like that, which big men it can happen to. But he's taking care of himself, and he's training. He's just raining jumpers all over the place, training out in California. I'm curious to see between him and Jabari Smith, who is going to be that favorite to win Rookie of the Year next year when we're talking about the NBA draft.
Yeah, Chet's such a highly volatile player because he could be a unicorn unlike anything we've ever seen in this league before. You kind of hit it on the head. Could he be a package of Giannis, Al Horford, Kevin Durant, like just a lot of things that have been thrown out there. The guy could shoot, he can dribble, he can rebound, he can defend the rim, but he's tiny. He's gonna have to bulk up. But I mean, we've seen guys bulk up, like you said. Go look at Giannis Antetokounmpo on draft night. That kid was skinny as a rail, and
Oh, yeah.
he's ripped now, right? Even a guy like Kevin Durant, who still looks really slender to this day, but he's put a little bit of size on him. We've seen guys like Kevin Garnett come into the league a long time ago, very slender as well. So Chet can fill out. If Chet can get to even 220, 225, which should be no problem for a young guy like that, then he's just a completely different basketball player, right? And so I know OKC is really wanting him, but on the flip side of it, this is a wing dominated league. We just saw it in the NBA Finals, right? And the Celtics get to the finals with two very good wing players. Most of the players that are really good in this league are 6'6" to 6'9", right? Steph Curry is an anomaly. Most guys fall into that range, and guess who falls into that range? That's Jabari Smith, and he's an elite scorer. He can handle the basketball. He can rise up and shoot over anybody. He's got a jump shot very similar to Kevin Durant's style. And do you take that guy in Orlando? Orlando needs a somebody to really step up and be the man in that city, because they have not had a star player down there in a really, really long time, probably since peak Dwight Howard. And before that, you're going to have to go back to like the Shaquille O'Neal days and Anthony Hardaway days. So, is it Jabari or is it Chet? I feel like Jabari is a better fit for Orlando to be that just, scorer that can put the ball in the hole. And I think Chet is a really good fit in OKC as a Gonzaga guy going to OKC. That's probably a better fit for him. They have like 35 first-round picks coming up, so they can let Chet just kind of develop and grow into his own and continue to build through the draft. And OKC might have something in about 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, no question there. Both players look like they'll be that future for sure. But Chet Holmgren, I'm still, I don't know, with how thin he is, and he's very skilled, but we got to get him on the same training plan that Giannis and Joel Embiid are on right now, 100%. Ross, we're running out of show. I got to lead with this, man. So you got a thing for Rachel Ray, I read here on Twitter. You were looking at the person you're most attracted to, whom you would be humiliated to let your friends know is hot. And I have racked my brain around that for like the last hour, trying to think of my own answer for that. Rachel Ray's look, most of those cooking girls like Jada.
The original tweet said they had to be like a 6 on the 1 to 10 scale. I feel like Rachel Ray is a solid 6. A couple other names I was thinking about today was like Hillary Swank is probably a solid 6. Kristen Wiig, Tina Fey is probably in that category as well, right? Like just solid 6s, right? And that's no shame. But
beautiful personalities. Oh, look at this. I'll pulled up Rachel Ray. Like this Rachel Ray is not. I don't know how old Rachel Ray is now, but she can throw down in the kitchen. That always adds to the appeal of the opposite sex in my eyes.
Young Rachel Ray was not bad. And I think she was married to a rock star at some point before they got a divorce. So
Jada De Laurentiis did it for me in her little T-Rex arms, and how she would speak in just perfect English and now we're going to go and get the pancetta and just throw in the very Italian names. And she has a restaurant in Vegas now too. Just loving playing. As far as anything else in pop culture, are you digging the house music boom here, Ross, with Drake, your boy Drake, and Beyonce? And I also I have questions about Drake's album in general, but I like the house music. Certain things I think Drake, I'm torn because he's really more of a pop musician at this point than he was a rapper. And pivot, man, make that money. That's fine. But then he also throws in a song with 21 Savage at the end that was like, why the hell wasn't the whole album like this? Like this shit slaps.
Yeah, or even like Sticky, right? Sticky was a little bit like where he's rapping over house beats, which is actually a little bit was pretty fun too.
Yeah, and the Beyonce song, like her single came out and people lost their minds, of course,
as they typically do, Beyonce,
as they do. But I like the house music vibes, man. As being, of course, from Chicago here, we got deep house music roots, and so I'm for it. I'd like to see more of it. It's funny, yeah. I think that it's an interesting pivot for Drake though to go ahead and do that, and Beyonce for that matter.
Sure, and I mean it goes to show you that the money is in is being, if you're able to be ambiguous and kind of fly in between genres, then you're able to get more money, right? And Drake just signed a $400 million deal, and so he's going to start getting a little bit more out the box, in my opinion, and start trying to hit more genres. Because if you look up, he's got the number one dance album in the world right now, the number one dance album, which means that he's going to get nominated in a different category for the Grammys from J. Cole and Kendrick Lamar. And all of a sudden, he goes into a little bit of a different bag, which obviously is more lucrative for him. I love house music. I mean, I grew up on the south side of Chicago, so we're Frankie Knuckles all day and guys like that. It's been fun this week to see all the cities try and talk about who invented house music or who did it better. The Chicagos of the world versus Jersey versus Baltimore and stuff like that. So I would implore everybody to, if you are enjoying this what's probably going to be a summer of new age house music, to at least go back and listen to a lot of the older house music that came out in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, because that stuff is very entertaining. It will definitely keep the party going. It's good, like in the house, like cleaning up vibes or getting the dinner ready vibes and stuff like that. Or if you got some friends over, you need some background music. That's pretty fun. I think Drake made an album that is perfect for the next time you go back to Vegas and you walk through the Cosmopolitan lobby. You'll be hearing a lot of that album there, or anytime I'm buying an $80 polo from Zara, I'm pretty sure it'll be playing in the background there as well. But true old school house music, I'm a huge fan.
Yeah, no question there. I did watch Hustle Ross,
Okay.
the Adam Sandler movie. I don't know if you've watched it yet.
I have not watched it
yet. My only regret was that, it's Happy Madison. So I got to see all those guys from his movies, and he should have had Nick Swartzen thrown in there. Like, I don't know, just being some scrappy point guard or something like that. Also being Anthony Edwards was fun. It was, it's a typical Adam Sandler at this point.
Yeah, I heard that.
His cameo.
Yeah, I go back and forth on Adam Sandler. I actually think I probably like his silly stuff a little bit more, like when he does like the stupid movies with Jennifer Aniston and stuff like that. Or Big Daddy's probably my favorite Sandler. When he tries to go almost to full serious, I'm not a huge fan. I wasn't a big fan of Uncut Gems. I did like Punch Drunk Love. That's a good movie as well. But I watched. I think you hit my DM on my story. I watched Spiderhead last week, which is from the same director as Top Gun Maverick, and it had Chris Hemsworth in it and Miles Teller. Very much a kind of dystopian, kind of looked like it was a COVID movie shot during COVID times. But a real fun, quick sci-fi movie if you're looking for something kind of to watch on a Friday night, which will kind of bend your brain a little bit, but not too much where you feel like you've got to overthink it.
No, right on.
Yeah.
Which brings us to Lightyear. You also watched that, right?
Yeah, it was tough watch.
Tough watch. Ooh.
Lightyear is. I've seen just about every Pixar movie. I'm actually a huge Pixar movie fan.
How could you not be?
Of course, that was mid. That was very mid Pixar. That was really bad. I was really disappointed with that. I was in the theater with my son and his new best friend who lives 2 doors down from us now. These guys are like inseparable with each other now, and I spent $60 at a concession stand on popcorns and slushies, and I needed 2 anti-heroes to get through Lightyear. But this one has Chris Evans now as the voice of the real Lightyear. It was actually really confusing for me, and I'm 40 years old, so I don't even know how a 5-year-old can understand what the hell is going on. But yeah, it just was not a very good movie to me. I can see why Disney and Pixar did it, because it's going to be a huge cash cow for them, and it's going to sell a ton of merchandise, and it allows them to kind of go back to their most successful franchise, obviously, which is Toy Story. We're going to go through our top 5 Pixar movies right now, but this one didn't do it for me. I actually liked a lot of the stuff that they brought to streaming over the last couple of years, like Red and Inside Out and Soul, which might be on my top 5, and some of the other movies as well.
Yeah, Pixar usually brings it. That's disappointing to hear about Lightyear. Yeah. With no further ado, Ross, let's go through the top 5 Pixar.
Let's go through our top 5. Absolutely.
With our grown-ass men. Yes. What is number 5 for you?
Number 5 for me is Soul, the aforementioned movie. If you haven't seen this movie before, this was like a COVID watch for us. Disney Plus threw it out there during COVID, and absolutely just amazing film. I think it's got Jamie Foxx as the star voice of it. The music is
Tina
unreal
Fey's in
throughout
it.
the whole movie. Tina Fey is in it. The movie's unreal. It's got a lot of it forces you, whether you're a child or adult, to really think and use your brain and kind of dig deep into your soul, no pun intended, and really think about some things. I thought the animation was great. It's great to see black and brown people in animated films. It's great to hear jazz music and stuff like that in animated films to bring some culture to everybody. And I think that it's a very underrated Pixar movie because it came out during kind of COVID quarantine times. I think if it was re-released in theater today, it would actually do really well. And I think Disney should think about that. I love Soul.
Soul's very good. The caveat should be I have just not watched a ton of these, like Coco and The Red,
Yeah.
Inside Out. I have not seen any of those recent.
Which I was going to say, it's kind of on my outside looking in, but like Coco is on that list, and
Right.
Cars, the original Cars, is on that list. You mentioned Inside Out was a big one for me too. But these even the Toy Story sequels are actually phenomenal, really phenomenal. I think one of them was nominated for Best Picture at one point. It might have been Toy Story 3 or Toy Story 4, but yeah, a lot of these they just have a great amount of movies. But these five, my number 4 for me. Have you ever seen Up?
Oh, of course. Number 5 for me, by the way, is Finding Nemo.
Sorry,
Up there.
Yes.
No, you good.
Yes.
Albert Brooks.
Yeah,
Ellen
absolutely.
DeGeneres, come on.
DeGeneres, yes.
Fantastic. What a
Just
journey.
keep swimming. Just keep swimming.
Keep
absolutely. Absolutely. My number 4 is Up, which is, listen, if you don't cry during that montage scene of Up, I don't think you have a soul. Yeah, going back to Soul again. It was just an absolutely tear-jerking movie. What an amazing film. It was like one of those movies where I think I just watched it like on a whim as a surprise. I was just like, whoa, what the fuck is this? Why is this so emotional for me right now? It's such an amazing movie. Watch Up with the family or just watch it by yourself. It's a great film.
That first 5 minutes it is just a roller coaster of emotions for sure. Number 4 for me is The Incredibles, and we know again, like most of these films have just spun off into franchises of their own, and there's like 5 Toy Stories now, or 3 Incredibles, or 3 Monsters Inc. But this one set the bar, and both you and I, Ross, love the superhero narrative, of course, too, and it was well cast. It was good plot to it too. So that's number 4 for me.
Absolutely. My number 3 is the robot movie WALL-E. WALL-E is such a great movie. Really fun, kind of like out of nowhere, kind of dystopian movie about the last remaining species being the robots. And you got this old junk robot. And he's finding love. WALL-E is such a fun movie, such an underrated, just really subtle, sweet movie. I'm a huge fan of that. That's another one that I can just watch over and over again. It's such a cool movie.
Pixar with these heavy messages too about how we should appreciate our planets and our planet and the Earth as a whole too, and look at Wally by himself and Eva, of course, and how he could feel. Number 3 was Monsters Inc. for me. Billy Crystal and John Goodman. It's
Mike and Sully.
Mike and Sully. What a duo! So fantastic, and again, one of those really funny concepts that Pixar came out with. Just think of the workforce of the monsters and how they have this whole academy and how that spun off into its own thing too. But really, those two are just comedy gold together when you put them together, and just an awesome cast of, like, Pixar just obviously has so much talent behind them, and the animation is great and the writing so good, but it comes back to these actors that they employ and just really hilarious stuff.
Absolutely. My number 2 is the one that really just started it all. It is Toy Story. I mean, Toy Story is, you get Tom Hanks to be Woody, you get Tim Allen in the cast as well. Such an creative, inventive idea of what if all your toys came to life, right? And just, the Potato Head Man is hilarious. It just, all the characters, the T-Rex guys is awesome. The fact that they were able to keep banging those movies out year after year, the fact that they were able to kind of bring it back to when Andy went to college and he came back home. It's just such an awesome movie. I love the dynamic of the old toy like Woody with the new toy coming in like Buzz Lightyear, and who's going to run the show and stuff like that. It's I love it so much. It's a super creative movie. I think the animation in that movie, even to this day, is still top notch. I still think it looks phenomenal. I think it's probably its most it's probably Pixar's most recognizable brand, right? And it's probably its most successful brand to date. I still love Toy Story to this day.
Yeah, you figure what started it all. Number two for me was Up. Going back to that, and just a great storyline of this old man and how he put the balloons to his house and honor his late wife, and how the little kid Russell, and then the dog, and just Pixar just paints these very vivid stories, and the animation, like you talked about, how Toy Story set it off, just continues to improve over the years. Number one for me is Toy Story. What's your number one, Ross?
My number one was your number five. It's Finding Nemo. The first time I saw Finding Nemo, I mean, as a guy, how can you not connect with the clownfish, and he's trying to be somewhat overprotective of his only son after he lost his wife and kids, but at what point do you let them go free? I think it's absolutely hilarious. Ellen DeGeneres absolutely kills it in that movie. I think it looks amazing, the colors and being in the water with those fish, and I love the various villains. I love a good like a trek, like an Odyssey. Anytime you've got to go on an adventure or a trip to go find somebody or find something, which is why The Little Mermaid is also really high on my list as well for just original Disney films. But I love Finding Nemo so much, and just an absolute terrific movie. I love the music in it as well. It's to me, it's Pixar's funniest film. I to this day still laugh my ass off when it comes out. I love it so much.
I feel like everybody's all about Coco. I'm surprised that it was not. I haven't seen it, so I have no.
Yeah, Coco's good. It's not. It's a little. I think in the last 10 years, Pixar has gotten very serious with their tones of their movie.
Really have.
Yeah, and they've taken
you kind of do a double take, taking your kids to very weighty subjects. Yeah.
Yeah. I miss when they have I don't mind the seriousness and the serious tones of a movie, but I do miss a lot of the comedic atmosphere that they had in their earlier films. And a movie like Coco is really good, but boy, it takes on some heavy, strings that they're trying to pluck in that movie. So, it's on my outside looking in, but still a really good movie.
That franchise stays winning, my friends.
Yep.
We are out of show. Thank you to everybody for listening in and watching us. We're on YouTube, Spotify, Podbean, iTunes, wherever you get your podcasts, and catch us out visually on YouTube, of course. Follow us on Twitter. Follow me at The Real Evan Mack. Follow Ross at Ross Read. Thank you to the Barroom Network for giving us a home. Follow them at Barroom Network for all the great shows. There's no science fiction tonight, I believe, so we'll be the cap to the channel. And for now, we say deuces. Everybody be good to each other out there. So long.
Peace.